I think most people assume that these green wind and solar energy facilities, they last a long time and are recycling everything they can. Is that not the case?
They last a little bit, usually about 20 years on average, but there's very little recycling going on. And I wrote a lot about this a while back. If an op-ed, it's called Green Garbage, if anyone wants to read that. But so yeah, typically about 20 years, but the kind of infrastructure to recycle this stuff at scale isn't quite there. And there's lots of stuff to recycle, to get rid of whenever these facilities are done producing energy. So if you think of a wind turbine, there's the actual turbine blades, and then the steel support. For solar panels, it's mostly steel and glass. So there's lots of kind of trash that exists after they're done, but there's not a lot of recycling taking place right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. Oh, so could you walk us through what happens under the current law when a project operator fails to properly clean up their site?
So right now, Texas law, before the passage of this bill, did require these facilities, when they're done operating, for those operators to clear out the wind turbines, the solar panels, and to kind of reclaim the land. What this bill does is actually require them to actually do something, have a guarantee they're going to do something with those materials whenever they're done with it. So again, right now there's not a whole lot happening. A lot of solar panels in particular, they're classified as a hazardous material because there's the rare earth metals and stuff that are inside of it. I think right now it costs about $20 to $30 to recycle a solar panel. It costs about $1 to just dump it in a landfill or something. So that's what's happening. With wind turbines and wind turbine blades, the steel support columns, that's steel. We know how to recycle steel. We can do that. The blades are wood and fiberglass. And what do you do with those? You can burn them. You can bury them. That's often what happens. There's lots of concepts out there for ways to recycle these. I think if you go on YouTube, you can look up. There's 10 different TED Talks talking about how to recycle wind turbine blades, and there are always some iteration of cut them into sections and call them something else. Put them on legs and call them a bus stop or a rain, like a rain guard for bikes and things like that. I think a lot of the impetus of this bill was from what we've seen happening here in Texas, specifically in Sweetwater, Texas. So in Sweetwater, there's lots of wind turbines in Sweetwater, Texas. If you've ever been there, I drive through it every time I go home to Lubbock. The Welcome to Sweetwater sign is a wind turbine. So lots of wind turbines there. There's a company there. There's a company called Global Fiberglass Solutions, and they're getting paid to take wind turbines from GE and other wind turbine companies to recycle these things. And they said they have a facility and this novel way of they're going to grind this up and turn it into pavement, or who knows? But they never did that. So they stacked these wind turbines up, sometimes 20 or 30 feet high, in these towns like Sweetwater. And it's just become kind of a den for vermin and snakes, and kids are playing on it and hurting themselves, and it's obviously a terrible eyesore. So I think that's what kind of prompted these bills. Now, what they're going to have to do going forward is whenever they set up the agreement to build these facilities, they're going to first have to provide the landowner and everybody involved a estimate on what the reclamation and recycling costs are going to be. They're going to have to put forward some sort of financial assurance, whether a bond or, like a letter of guarantee that they're going to be able to afford this. And they're going to have to kind of update that throughout the 20-year lifespan so that they are, there's a guarantee in place that they're going to do something and actually recycle these. Now, one thing with this bill is that it does only apply to new generation. So it's for wind and solar that is built after the passage. So, but as most people know, Texas is definitely leading in wind, and will soon be leading in solar. And this bill's not going to apply to any of those. And we're going to have a massive garbage problem on our hands. If you look at just what exists right now, wind turbines, again, just the steel support structures to hold those turbines up. We got, I think, about 40 gigawatts of wind right now. It's close to 20,000 individual turbines. There's going to be about 4 million tons of the steel that needs to be recycled. There's going to be about 800,000 tons of wind turbines that are going to have to be recycled. And then with solar, I think we have about 30, maybe soon to be 40 gigs of solar. That's tens of millions of individual panels. Again, much cheaper just to dump them, but this law is going to require that, again, new solar is going to be actually recycled, but all that stuff that isn't covered by this law, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. So, Yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounds like at least this puts a little more accountability on new producers of wind and solar, although all that other stuff's probably going to end up in a landfill, as you say. So how do you see this affecting the wind and solar industry's operations in Texas moving forward? As you said, it's only new producers. So what do you think that's going to do for them?
Well, I mean, the best thing is that they're going to be held to a similar standard as other energy sources, hydrocarbons, oil, gas, and coal operations. There's, entire chapters of state code determining what they're going to do with their waste material, how they recycle it, how they dispose of it, things like that. So them being held to a standard moving forward, that's good. Similar standard. Again, the infrastructure to recycle and dispose of this stuff responsibly and at scale isn't really in place. Again, if you go look for ways to do it, there's lots of startup companies. There's lots of people saying how they plan to do it, but I don't know if anybody really realizes how much of this is coming our way. So since they're got to provide some financial assurance, they'll probably have to work that into their planning when they're planning these facilities. Maybe they build a little bit less. And somebody, I think, is in a good spot to come up with a way to reuse these materials and make sure they're not sitting around forever.